Oh, hey there. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Military Movie Talk. We're doing something a little bit different today. Yes, we're doing an only semi-scripted video about stuff I just want to talk about. So we're going to find out if I can articulate my points well, or it's just going to come out as one big pile of slop. So a little context. Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, has had this thing going on for a while where he encourages people to talk about films that they like but other people don't, and inversely, films they hate that everyone else loves. And I suppose you can consider this my entry into this arena. Yeah, because I've been watching the Nostalgia Critic stuff since I don't know, like 2011 or something like that. And it was kind of those videos that was one of my main original inspirations to give making videos a try as just a means of creative outlet. So I suppose you can kind of consider this my little tribute to him. I'm assuming he's never actually going to find out these videos exist, but that's okay. That's not the main point behind these. It's just something I think would be fun and for us to discuss and talk about. So yeah. Also, we're going to do 3 movies in both categories because honestly, doing any more sounds like a lot of work and I ain't about that life. So, without further ado, let's dive on into it. There's not really going to be much to look at, so if you just want to listen to this video, then by all means, and if that doesn't sound interesting to you, then thanks for sticking with me this far. Yeah, let's dive into it. And so, in no particular order, 3 movies that I like that everyone else does not. So I may be a little late to the game to be a prequels apologist, considering the sequels are now well and truly out, and but this is a thought I've really always had, and granted, a lot of my love for the prequels I think comes from the fact that I was just the perfect age when they came out. When Episode 1 was in theaters, I was 8, so that should, give you some context to my love. However, that love has remained. A lot of the criticisms that Episode 1 in particular gets is all the political and, I guess not geopolitical, I guess it'd be like galactic political stuff and how that really slows down the movie for people and makes it boring for them. If you've ever watched any of my previous content, you know that my main points of interest that I like to talk about is not only movies, but it's the tactics and strategy and geopolitics of situations and kind of examining them. And so the stuff that most people consider boring in Episode 1, it's some of my favorite stuff. What does a small planet do that has no infrastructure, no real military presence do when a corporate interest, in this case the Trade Federation, swoops in and basically seizes power? And how does that translate to them responding both politically and militarily? Great stuff, great stuff. At least I think so. I don't know if anyone else does. I really do. Coming up with solutions and planning and strategy, that's always been really interesting to me, and I think the prequels, particularly Episode 1, does this in a way that a lot of other movies don't, because they're afraid of scaring off general audiences, and like I said, this has gotten them a lot of criticism over the years. I do also think this is one of the main things that I really like about the Clone Wars TV show. There's plenty to criticize about the show, but the main things I always found interesting is the actual strategy of the campaigns of both sides. For the Confederacy, you've got these different corporate interests, and in Episode 2, they really show how it's all these corporate interests that are the main military arm of the Confederacy, and that actually makes it look like the entire Confederacy is just based on these corporate interests, the banking clan, the Trade Federation, etc., etc. But the show does a good job of showing this, like, what the actual on-the-ground folks of the Confederacy, of the planets that are loyal to the Confederacy, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and the show does a really good job of showing how the Clone Army, as being this, more elite but much smaller military organization, has to conduct these, much more smaller scale campaigns, just doing a few ships, a few battalions, whatever, attempting to reestablish control for not the Galactic Empire, the Galactic Republic. I'm good at this stuff. You see, how they conduct themselves. So that's what's always really fascinating to me. Anyway, we're not talking about the show, we're talking about Episode 1. And so that those are my really favorite things about it. I think it does a really good job of trying to come up with alternate solutions to really interesting problems in a really interesting world. In addition to that, of course, you still got the awesome music, the awesome costumes, the awesome sets. Darth Maul being a really great villain for what very little we get of him. And it's stuff like that that makes it hold a really impactful place in my little Grinch heart. And so that's why I like Episode 1, Star Wars, even though a lot of people don't. Like I said, it's certainly not universally hated. I think a lot of people have come around to it, but that's how I feel about it. What do you think? Number the next one, The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Before I hit the record button, I was trying to get my thoughts in order as to why this movie isn't very popular. Uh, and the best conclusion that I can come to personally is that it's not Jurassic Park. It's just not as good as the first one. But this movie is a lot of fun. It's kind of taking the idea and expanding on it, taking it in a totally different direction, a new island, a new setup, very much the same, but going somewhere different, which is something a lot of sequels don't do. It's kind of just a complete rehash of the first one, whereas this one is not. We Hey, there's that word salad I was warning you guys about earlier. Unlike the first one, which, like I said, is better, it has this more intimate setting where we get to know the characters more and kind of experience the fear they're going through. The second one, while not as good, is expanded out into this really fun cast, especially all the mercenaries that InGen sends. You know, you got Peter Postlethwaite, or however the heck you say his name, and Peter Stormare, and all these really fun characters that get to go out and kind of experience the world of Jurassic Park in a whole new setting. And plus, they got a lot of really cool guns, which is something that tickles my jimmies. Is that a real saying? I don't know. I think it's probably inappropriate for what I'm trying to say, but hey, whatever. It's fine. This is all off the cuff, so it'll be fine. Also, we get, with the climax where the T-Rex invades, the port, little port city there. That at the time was something that was fairly new. I forget if Godzilla had come out yet at that time. It was about the same time. Godzilla might have been a little bit later, but that's something that we didn't really see that much with the modern special effects, and it's tons of fun. Not as good as the first one, yes, but what pound for pound for fun, this might be the best Jurassic Park film as far as just sheer enjoyment level. I think. Yeah, when I warned you guys I wasn't going to be able to be very articulate, I think here we are. But that's the idea. That's the best I can kind of come up with for you. But that's the horribly explained reason why I like that movie when I think a lot of people don't. Anyway, on to the next one. The Green Berets. So when I was a young child in 1840s Nebraska as a pioneer, I watched a lot of the typical little kids movies that most kids my age grew up with. Your Disney classics, your Don Bluth, etc., etc. The first quote unquote adult movies I was introduced to were westerns, and those westerns usually starred John Wayne. And so this is a man that holds a very dear place to my heart. Even though, as far as a lot of the classic actors that I really like, he probably was one of the least talented when it comes to his acting. Not that he was untalented, just that every character he played was John Wayne. So that's just a little context. Now, to shift focus back to the Green Berets, a lot of the criticism that comes with this film is that it's basically just U.S. propaganda for the budding, and well, I guess not really budding at that point. It was, the mid 60s, so special forces had been around for, a solid 15 years plus. There's just propaganda for it. And to that criticism, I must say that is 100% correct. But doggone it, it's propaganda that I love. It just does it for me. It's hilarious because like the first act of the movie is just like what a Green Beret team does stateside during that time period, and then the second act is just kind of examining the Green Berets' main mission in South Vietnam at that time, being establishing you know relationships with the South Vietnamese, training them up, running missions out of patrol bases, and kinda like how that stuff all worked. And even though it's corny as all get out, boy, like that I find that stuff really neat. Kinda like it just makes sure that the script hits all those little aspects, from, giving medical aid to the locals, to training indigenous forces, to responding to attacks on the base, machine gun operations, mortar operations, like just it expands the whole gamut. And it's one cliche after another, but like I said, it just does it for me. I think it's fantastic. The weakest part probably is the third act, which is kind of this ad hoc mission that's kind of chopped on the end, demonstrating like the budding tier one side of U.S. Special Forces, which would eventually, be developed into like Delta Force and so on and so forth. Yeah, yeah, it's something that most people just roll their eyes to. It's just John Wayne being John Wayne in a different setting and just different propaganda. But that's what I like to see. That's it's a ton of fun. It's exactly what I'm looking for in a film of that time period. And if you like old war movies and you've never seen it, then it's one I highly recommend you at least give a chance, because it might surprise you. So there it is. 3 films that I like that everyone else hates. Granted, rather poorly presented, but you know what? I'm still climbing that ladder of excellence of presenting information without having a bunch of notes in front of me, so it'll be alright, I think. If you have made it this far, that means it's now time to check out my other video, 3 films that I hate that everyone else likes. Thank you for joining me, and as always, keep your powder dry. See ya.